Alright, so I know this is a very long video. I did not plan for this to be such a long video. The first portion of this is actually me just explaining the current situation of the AI trades in the series. I do recommend that you listen to this portion of the video just to hear my point of view on why AI trades should be on or off, and then vote in the straw poll on whether you think they should be on or off. But if you would like to skip to certain parts of the video, there will be timestamps in the description as well as in the comments below. Alright, so here's the deal. What's in front of your face right now is what my trade slider has looked like all season. Obviously, it has been turned off, meaning there has been no trade so far in the 2020 season. And we're going to get into why that has been throughout this little intro portion of the episode before I actually move into the actual All-Star Break episode. I just want to lay out everything out there, and then we're going to decide what the best course of action is to do with the trades from here on forward in the series. Alright, so one of the biggest trades that happened this previous offseason was the Milwaukee Brewers acquired Luis Severino from the New York Yankees, and in return, the Brewers signed Zach Wheeler to a 2-year deal, sent him to the Yankees, and they also sent their top prospect in Keston Hiura, I believe is how you say his name. The other main one being Jose Leclerc was traded to the San Diego Padres from the Texas Rangers. Jose Leclerc, obviously just an extremely filthy closer. He's got filthy stuff, but he has control issues, but he is a 91 overall, so he's a very good player to have. And they only gave up 37-year-old second baseman who is having a bad year, Ian Kinsler, and 31-year-old extremely injury-prone starter, 81 overall, also having a bad year in Garrett Richards. Obviously, they weren't having bad years when they traded for them. It was the offseason, but this is just what the trade looks like from a standpoint right now. And then the third trade that happened this past offseason that made me really scratch my head was Miguel Cabrera to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Obviously, the Pittsburgh Pirates already have Josh Bell, very good young first baseman, had a good 2019 season for them, so it wasn't like they were in need of a first baseman. And they're a National League team, so they don't have a DH. Although Bell is somehow still getting ABs for them, and he's having a great year in 2020, on top of Miggy having a good year for them. But Miguel Cabrera's contract is just so atrocious that long-term, you can't help but look at that and be like, ugh. Because he is getting paid $31 million for this year, $31 million for next year, the next year, and the next year. So 4 years, including this one, of $31 million a year. He's already 36 years old. And at the time, when I saw that trade in this past offseason, I said, okay, I guess that's just swapping bad contracts, and then just a random outfielder got added on as just a weird MLB The Show thing. But I guess I was really completely overestimating what Chris Archer was making. He's not making much at all, and he's only signed through this season. So when you realize that, the trade doesn't really make sense to me, because they got a prospect and Chris Archer for Miguel Cabrera, but they didn't, give up anybody. You would think that in order to get rid of Miguel Cabrera's contract, they would just, because they want to get rid of his contract, they're trying to rebuild, they're nowhere close to winning. But you would think in order for them to make someone take Miguel Cabrera's contract, they would have to give up, at least a, not a good prospect, but at least a decent prospect to make it more enticing to take his contract. But that's not what happened. The Tigers got a prospect in return, and they didn't give up anybody. They just said, hey, have his contract, and we'll take this pitcher who will give us a year of work, and then we'll just let him walk, and some random prospect who will probably never be in the major leagues. So to me, that trade just doesn't really make any sense. And if the Tigers do re-sign Chris Archer, which I'm not sure why they would, because they're not a team, like I said, they're not a team that's close to winning. So it just all around doesn't make much sense to me on either side of the deal. Now let's actually move on to what the tipping point was for me. Why did I go from, alright, we're going to have trade slider on, to, okay, I cannot do this anymore, trade slider's now off. And that's actually because of a trade, or well, 2 trades that the Boston Red Sox made within 2 days of each other. So I start off the 2020 season, I sim a couple days, and I see that the Red Sox trade for Mark Trumbo. And I'm like, why do they need a first baseman? So I go to the roster, and I look that they signed Justin Smoak in the offseason, and then they still have Steve Pearce. You see it right on your screen now. This is what their current situation at first base looks like. Obviously, this wasn't what it looked like in the offseason, because these guys were not having numbers. They did not play yet in the 2020 season, so we couldn't tell what was going to happen in the 2020 season. But looking at it from the offseason standpoint, the Red Sox had just signed another first baseman, Justin Smoak. They already have 2 first basemen, MLB caliber. If you look at it right now, they're having trouble finding playing time for Justin Smoak as he's in AAA, and they also have a prospect in Sam Travis. And then they went out and traded for Mark Trumbo, a third middle-aged, mediocre first baseman. So I said, that's just weird, but I guess it's not the worst thing in the world, because they didn't, give up a ton for him. And then I simmed 2 days. 1-2, that's it, just 2 days. 2 days later, they say, we're gonna make another trade. We're gonna take our top prospect, the Ice Horse, Michael Chavis, and just ship him straight up to the Los Angeles Angels for Joe Adell. We're just gonna swap top prospects. And that was really why I said, okay, this needs to be looked at. I'm just gonna reload my last save and then turn trade sliders off for now until I figure out what to do. So I started the Giants franchise this year with the intention of not obsessing over realism of every little detail like I have in previous years past. Obviously, I still care about realism. Obviously, that's a main point of my series. It always has been, it always will be. It's just, I'm not obsessing to it to the point where it becomes exhausting for me as a content creator and a human being. Just sitting there being meticulous over every little thing. It is extremely exhausting, and I'm not trying to burn out after a season or 2 of playing this and then just be like, alright, I don't want to post this anymore. So I'm trying to avoid that by mixing things up, doing things differently, and that was one of my plans, because in previous years for this series, I've had AI trades just turned off at all. Because in MLB The Show franchises, the trade logic has been broken since as far as back as I can remember. I have not been able to find an MLB game in the show series that has had a trade logic that isn't completely broken. Now, I don't like turning the AI trades off, because when you turn AI trades off, it doesn't help the league as a whole throughout multiple seasons. So what I mean by that is, after 3-4 seasons of this, the same teams that were good are still good, and the same teams that were bad are still bad. And the rosters generally look very similar from year to year. Really, the only thing that ever changes is, the Dodgers will sign 990 overall free agents in one offseason, and then every other team just has, one random rookie with, a Dallas Keuchel beard, and rather than a compression arm sleeve, he has, a baggy arm sleeve, and he's a pitcher. So it limits the AI teams and how they can actually change their team, how they can actually become good, and that's only through the draft and free agency. And really, it's only through the draft, because free agency is completely dominated by the same 2-3 teams. Generally, it's the Dodgers. I've had it before where the Dodgers had, this was when Justin Turner was a 95 overall and he was winning MVPs every season. This was MLB 16 or something like that. And then Manny Machado hit free agency, and they were like, yeah, we're just going to sign Manny Machado, and rather than playing him at shortstop, we're just going to platoon Manny Machado and Justin Turner, one against righties, one against lefties. And that was the AI's decision, because that was what happened. But even though I don't like turning off AI trades because it limits the parity and excitement of the league, I do turn it off because the trade logic and how bad it is doesn't really give me much choice. And yes, I know people are going to comment, well, you could do 30-team control. I understand that. I did that with my MLB 16 franchise, I believe it was, or was it 15? I think it was 16 that I did with the Oakland Athletics. So what I would do is every team was controlled by me, but only the A's were controlled manually. Everyone else was on auto, so that it was just the CPU running those teams. And I would literally sim one day, look at the pending transactions. If there was a trade that was stupid, I would decline it. Sim one day, look at the pending transactions, look at the trades, sim one day, look at the pending transactions, decline a trade, sim one day, okay, this trade's fine, sim one day, and I would do that every single day of the season. And like I said, I did not want to meticulously obsess over how realistic everything was in this year's franchise, so I didn't even give any thought to doing 30-team control for this year's franchise. And you can't turn on 30-team control mid-franchise, so that's not even an option for this year's series. If I'm still posting franchise videos when MLB 20 rolls around, then yeah, I'll probably end up doing 30-team control and doing that, but right now that's not an option. But honestly, I don't want the league to have absolutely no parity and get boring after 3 to 4 seasons. Like I said, I'm planning to do multiple seasons of this franchise, and as I'm sure if anybody who has been around for my channel for previous years or for many years, you will know that I generally get bored of a series or just a combination of reasons all clash together, and I end up just kind of just stopping the series like midway through season 4 or 5 or something, and then I usually disappear and I don't post anything. I've been trying to avoid that this year because I would like to continue posting because I've been very much enjoying playing this series and creating content for this series. Now, I don't want you guys to think that me doing this long-winded, just over-explaining everything, me just rambling about things, I don't want you guys to think that me doing this is me, like, getting bored of the series, or me being like, ah, shit, fuck, I fucked up, I don't know what I'm gonna do, this ruins my enjoyment. That's not what I'm doing here. I am still very much enjoying doing everything, because I don't want to make a big decision like this just by myself and not even address it. I do want to lay it out to you guys and let you guys vote for it. So my question to you, the viewer, is one of two options. One, should I just say fuck it and leave trades on, just turn them back on, full chaos, embrace that this is a different reality in real life, and embrace that bad trades are going to happen? Now, I think I'm personally leaning towards turning trades back on and just saying fuck it, embracing the chaos, because that way there's going to be parity in the league, there's going to be excitement with the AI trades, teams will be able to change, possibly teams that are bad will be able to get better, maybe the Cleveland Indians won't win the AL Central. Also, for the sake of my sanity playing this and creating content, I don't want to seem like I'm just like cornering you guys into deciding this, because I'm not trying to be like, oh, well, if you don't vote for this, I'm not going to keep posting. I'm not trying to do something like that. First option was to just be turn the trades back on, embrace the chaos, embrace that this is a different reality. Second option would be to just leave trades off and do it the way I've been doing it for years past. So in order to vote, there will be a link in the description as well as a link in the pinned comment down below in the comments section for option 1 and option 2. It's going to be a straw poll link. You don't need to sign up for anything. You just go there, you click on your option, you hit submit, and bam, that's all you need to do. And then after a day or so, I'll make my decision based on the results. I don't want to wait too long because I obviously still need to record stuff, and I'm actually currently recorded up to the trade deadline, so I don't want to do the trade deadline and then turn trades back on. So if it's like a neck and neck sort of thing, I'll wait like a day or so, but if I put it up and after like 6 hours or something, it's just overwhelmingly one thing over the other, I'll just be like, okay, people want this over that. Alright, well that's enough for this long-winded intro of what I should actually do, over-explaining everything, just rambling, because I can't actually convey my thoughts in a clear, concise manner. I'm sure this video will end up being like 45 minutes long, and let's just hop into the actual episode. Alright, we are here at the mid-season break. We are at the All-Star break. The All-Stars are just scrolling by your screen right now, both the NL and the AL All-Stars. This is the All-Star break / mid-season update video, where we go over all the stats, the league leaders, the standings, and just anything else I feel is relevant to the state of the team or the league or anything I feel like mentioning. Our All-Stars, we had 2 of them. Reyes Moranza made it as a closer, and Buster Posey as a catcher. Now let's move on to the stats portion of the episode for our team. Leury Garcia, 888 OPS, currently leads the Giants, a very surprising OPS for Garcia. He's got 10 home runs. He has been a very solid utility guy off the bench for us. Even thinking about bringing him back next season on a cheap 1-year deal. We'll have to decide once the offseason comes around, but he has been very impressive as a guy who plays a lot, but not an everyday position. Tetsuto Yamada, another guy who has also been very impressive, 878 OPS, 8 home runs, 9 steals. He's among the league leaders in doubles with 22 of those bad boys, and he's currently in the running for the NL Rookie of the Year. He is behind Nick Senzel and Ronald Butler of Miami. Ryan Schimpf, the big bat in our lineup, got off to a pretty slow start to the year, but he has really picked it up as of late over the past month or so. He's bumped his OPS up to an 843. He's got 20 home runs, which leads the team. He has struck out already 109 times, which is going to be, he's on pace to be well over his last year total of strikeouts, but I don't really give a shit about his strikeout numbers. asking Ryan Schimpf to cut down on strikeouts is just kind of pointless. I mean, he's going to strike out a lot. I'm just hoping he gets on base plenty of times and hits a lot of home runs, which so far he's doing the home runs part. I would like to see a bit more getting on base, but he has been impressive nonetheless. Robbie Grossman missed the first 2 months of the season with torn cartilage in his knee. He is back now, and with 141 ABs, he has an 829 OPS. That is with a 389 OBP. Still a great leadoff hitter for us, and I guess since he was hurt, his service time did not get racked up, so he's actually pushed back on the service time, and he now has another year of arbitration. So Robbie Grossman will be back next season for us. No point in getting rid of a good cheap bat with another year of team control, so Grossman will be back. Could have sworn that he was a free agent at the end of this year, going back to looking at last year's offseason, but I guess the injury pushed it back, and now he is available to be back for us. Buster Posey, kind of boring to talk about Buster Posey because he's so good that he's just continually good for us. OPS above 800, still hitting, no power, same deal with Buster Posey. Carlos Gonzalez got off to a pretty hot start. He's dropped down quite a bit recently. He only has a 771 OPS now. It was in the 800s. Hoping he can pick things back up heading into the trade deadline. When that time does come around, that he is able to be like, okay, he's a hot player, you want this guy, and be able to get a decent return for him at the trade deadline, but even if he remains cold at the deadline, he will be traded nonetheless. Franklin Barreto has pretty much been our everyday shortstop for the Giants, only a 701 OPS. It did start off much better. He's been on a bit of a cold streak recently, but he is still so much better than Crawford offensively this season. Obviously not the ideal defensive shortstop, but Crawford's just been so bad at the plate that I can't play him at the everyday shortstop position. He still has 241 ABs, and he has a sub-600 OPS, and that's actually much higher than it used to be. It was in the high 300s at one point, like a month or so into the season. So Brandon Crawford has been very bad this year. He's been a complete liability at the plate. Still a defensive wizard, obviously. We still have him for one more season after this. Hopefully he could be a bit better offensively next year, but right now it looks like second and third base is going to be Yamada and Barreto, and then Crawford will be like a backup on the team who just plays here and there. Still getting a decent amount of ABs because he is a defensive wizard, but he's not quite the player he used to be or he was for us last year. Evan Longoria having a bad first half yet again, had a very bad first half last year, picked it up in the second half to have a decent year for us last year, but I mean, Evan Longoria, he's just a pinch hitter for us at this point. I mean, we need a first baseman, but he's not a guy who I want to play every day at first base because even he's not hitting, so Evan Longoria, he's really just a pinch hitter at this point, and he's not even doing that well for us. I will talk about him more later on in the episode. Jacoby Jones, currently our starting center fielder, a 648 OPS. Obviously not here for his bat. He has basically taken the role of Kevin Pillar, except he is a much younger, much cheaper Kevin Pillar. Connor Joe just hasn't been the first baseman that we hoped he would be at all. He's actually been quite bad. A 534 OPS through 112 ABs. We will get more into our first baseman issue a little later on in the episode. Moving on to the pitching side of things, we've got Johnny Cueto, who's actually been the best starter on the team. 2.91 ERA, 2.94 FIP, that's sub-3 both ways, 111 Ks through 117 and a third innings pitched. He's got the highest WAR on the team with a 2.9. Very good to see that Johnny Cueto can still be quite effective. And he's not just a Longoria-esque waste of money contract. Brandon Beachy, another guy who has surprisingly stayed healthy and has surprisingly been very good for us. 3.32 ERA, 3.21 FIP through 100 and a third innings pitched, 2.2 WAR, that's the second highest on the team. He's a free agent at the end of the year, so I'm going to have to decide if Brandon Beachy is going to be traded at the deadline. He's 33, so he doesn't really fit with our plan of going younger in the rotation. Playoff teams could definitely use a guy of his caliber, how he's pitching this season. So, I mean, even if we could bring him back for probably pretty cheap, it's probably better to get something for him at the deadline if we can. Derek Rodriguez, I thought he would be our ace this year, but he has not quite been that. He hasn't had the greatest first half, a 4.93 ERA, 4.07 FIP. not the worst, but I mean, I'm hoping he can be better in the second half because he is, as I said, a guy who hopefully is going to be our ace for seasons to come. But luckily, we're not overpaying him or anything. He's only making $4 million throughout his arbitration years. And that's taking a look at the Shark, who he's been fine. Not great, not bad. 4.21 ERA, 4.13 FIP. He's in the last year of his contract. Might be traded at the deadline. We'll get into that a bit later on in the episode. Tyler Anderson, he got off to a very hot start for us, but he has since fizzled out. He's by no means been pitching bad, it's just that he was the best pitcher on our team like the first month of the season, and now he's the lowest WAR among our starting pitchers. 3.31 ERA, pretty solid. 4.32 FIP, misleading ERA. So, not the greatest FIP, but I mean, it's not bad either. It's also not quite what he did with Colorado last season. Now moving on to the bullpen, where we have Greg Holland, who has been a solid bullpen piece for us at 2.22 ERA, 3.00 FIP, 54 strikeouts through 48 2/3 innings. He's going to probably get us a decent return at the deadline. Tanner Scott has been one of our best bullpen arms. We picked him up in the Rule 5 draft from the Orioles, and he has struck out 61 batters over 46 2/3 innings. Been very impressive. Reyes Maranta, of course, was an all-star for us, mainly because he's an overall that's really high, and he's just like a name on the Giants, but I mean, he hasn't had the greatest season. 36 strikeouts, 29 1/3, has a 4.81 FIP, which is not good at all. He could definitely be better, especially when you look at his ratings, but he is a all-star nonetheless. Tyler Beatty has been serviceable for us, a 4.67 FIP, not the greatest. Could be better. He definitely has the stuff to be a solid reliever for us, but he's just not showing that so far. Brandon Finnegan has actually been pretty decent for us, not spectacular by any means, but he's pretty decent. 4.23 ERA, 3.70 FIP. He's been pretty decent as a long middle reliever type guy in the bullpen. Carter Capps has not pitched the most innings since coming up from AAA, but he has been impressive. He's got that 98, 99, up to 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He's got a wipeout slider. He's a guy who could stick around for us for at least next season, as he does have one more year of arbitration left on his status as a player. Mark Melancon, he's been meh. He's in the last year of his contract. He might be traded. He's probably not going to get much in return because he's not that good, but we'll talk more about that later on. Trevor Gott, he is a guy who we have for multiple years of team control, and he has not been the greatest. Not awful, though, but he's just kind of a meh reliever. Josh James was sent down to AAA because he could not find the strike zone for his life at the major league level, and he gave up a lot of runs. He has 49 strikeouts through 42 innings in AAA, though, 2.14 walks per 9. He has a straight 2 FIP. Good to see he's cutting down on the walks and he's dominating in AAA. He'll be back up in the major leagues eventually, probably at some point this season, probably post-trade deadline. And speaking of relievers who will be up post-trade deadline, TJ Trejo, the guy who was dominating AA, probably the best reliever in AA to start off the year, is now up in AAA as a 19-year-old, 27 strikeouts and 16 1/3 innings pitched. Completely ignore his ERA. It means nothing. A 1.16 FIP. Extremely good. He will 100% be in the big leagues post-trade deadline once a spot opens up. And now let's just take a quick look around the league among the WAR leaders for hitters and pitchers on both leagues. In the National League, among hitters, the top 5 is Freddie Freeman, Christian Yelich, Travis Shaw, Bryce Harper, and Paul Goldschmidt. On the pitcher side of things, it's Jacob deGrom, Jose Quintana, Max Scherzer, our very own Johnny Cueto, and then Luis Severino. In the American League, for the hitters side of things, Matt Chapman actually has a higher WAR than Mike Trout, followed by Alex Bregman, Gary Sanchez, and of course another athletic who are having a very good season offensively is Matt Olson. On the pitcher side of things, they've got Chris Sale, Carlos Carrasco, Corey Kluber, James Paxton, and Garrett Cole. Trevor Bauer's also in the top 10. The Indians just have an insane pitching staff. And if you take a look at our team rankings, where our team as a whole ranks throughout the league, and runs allowed, we're not the worst, we're pretty mediocre. We've only allowed the 12th most runs. But with runs scored, we're 25th because we have a bad offense. In hits, we're 19th. In OBP, we're 25th. But one thing we are good at, we're good at getting defensive assists. We're 4th. We're top 5 in the league in that. Nobody can take that away from us. Taking a look around the league, starting in the National League East, the Atlanta Braves lead that division. Phillies are only a half game back. Nationals are only 2 games back. Pretty tight competition at the top of that division. In the NL Central, once again a total bloodbath of a division. Pretty much everybody is still in it. Pirates are in first. Cubs are a half game back. Cardinals only 3.5. Reds are 7 back. Brewers are 8 back. Everybody's still in it. I'm pretty sure at least 3 of these teams are in it with the wild card as well. On the West, you get the Dodgers leading the division. D-backs having a good year, but they're still 8.5 games back because the Dodgers are having such a good year. Padres have been decent. They're 11 games back. And then, of course, us and the Rockies have just stunk it up this year. In the American League side of things, you've got in the East, Yankees just remain OP in this game. Rays and Red Sox both having great years, but they are 5.5 and 6 games back, respectively. Jays and Orioles, they both predictably stink. In the AL Central, surprise, surprise, the Indians are in first by a lot. Twins are in second, they're 12.5 games back. Everybody else in that division just stinks. In the AL West, you've got the Mariners leading the division here at the All-Star break. The A's are in second place, a half game back, and the Houston Astros somehow are under 500 the All-Star break. Not a good first half for Houston. Now, looking at our first base situation, obviously we started the season with Tyler Austin because we traded Brandon Belt to get prospects. That was something that was going to happen. I'm not complaining that we don't have a first baseman because we're trying to compete, obviously. I'm just saying we don't have a first baseman because nobody's hitting right now, and we don't really have a future first baseman set other than Buster Posey. So Tyler Austin, he was stinking it up at the major league level. He was sent down to AAA. Connor Joe, as we know, was tearing up AAA. He was called up to take his place, but he's been stinking it up in the big leagues. So Connor Joe, not the option of first base. So in the organization right now, who do we have as an option at first base? Probably the best one is Gilberto Fuentes. We just recently saw his prospect profile. We know he's bad defensively, has a great bat. The question with him is, do we want to rush him to the big leagues? Maybe not. Maybe wait till next year. We'll have to see. Connor Gillespie, he's currently on our 40-man roster, probably the second best choice. He had a good year in AAA last year. That's why he got added to the 40-man. He's having a decent year this year in AAA. Not really good, but decent. And he's not an ideal Major League everyday first baseman. Zach Green was the best bat on our AA team last year. He started in AAA this year, was very bad, got sent back down to AA, hitting decently well now, but he's not on the 40-man roster, would need to make room for him, and the question is he worth making room for in this state right now? Probably not. So the other option would probably be to call up Joey Bart now, have him catch, and move Posey to first base now. We could just fast-track the future and start that now rather than waiting till next season or whenever Joey Bart is ready. But I do not want to rush Joey Bart because he's not exactly tearing up AAA right now, so I'll probably just wait until 2021 to have Joey Bart as our catcher and Buster Posey as our first baseman. So we are actually going to get a bit creative here. We're going to look outside the organization in free agency at a guy who's not even a first baseman, Nelson Cruz. We'll teach him to play first base. It's not that hard. Tell him, Wash.
It's incredibly hard.
And Nelson Cruz absolutely mashed last season with the Twins. He had 39 bombs, he had an 862 OPS, but because he's old, nobody wanted him. We're going to try him at first base. If it doesn't work out, we'll just release him because he's only making $650,000. He will be wearing number 17 for us at the Major League level. Ray Black has been removed from the 40-man roster to make room for him, and Connor Joe has been sent back down to AAA. Oh, and Tyler Austin, not even hitting in AAA, so he wasn't an option to get called back up either. Now, before we actually show who is on our trade block, I do want to show that we did make a minor league for minor league trade. Chris Shaw, corner outfielder / first baseman, was shipped off to Colorado in the division in return for infielder Peter Mooney. Just a AAA for AAA trade. Chris Shaw is a 26-year-old corner outfielder first baseman with good hitting ratings. He just hasn't been able to put it together for us. So hopefully a change of scenery is what he needs. And then Peter Mooney, he's a 29-year-old AAA player. He's 5'6". He's an infielder, second base, third base, shortstop. Hasn't ever gotten a shot in the bigs. He's just not a guy who really has that much value because he'll be 30 next season. and he's probably just depth for us in our organization, but he might get some looks in the big leagues as a backup infielder next year. He will be in AAA Sacramento for us right now, but he is on the 40-man roster, so once September call-ups rolls around, he will be in the major leagues getting some looks. And now taking a look at the trade block, guys who are probably the most likely to get traded, you've got Mark Melancon. Obviously, he's on there. He's in the last year of his contract. Greg Holland, we signed him in the offseason to a one-year deal with the purpose of having a good season, trading him at the deadline. Andrew Suarez is an interesting one. He's in AAA for us, dominating AAA, has not done anything in the major leagues for us. He came up a bit last year, was very bad. He's a guy who has good ratings. He would probably be at least serviceable for us at the major leagues, but he's a guy who's kind of just blocking younger guys because, yeah, he could be a starter for us, but I would rather have younger guys, the prospects we have, start in a rotation over him, so he's just kind of being a gap between them. So I would like to trade him and possibly pick up maybe a first baseman, maybe somebody else. We'll figure out what happens at the deadline. Carlos Gonzalez also, he was signed in the offseason to a one-year deal with the purpose of trading him at the deadline. Jeff Samardzija, probably not much value, but I'm going to try to get something for him because he is in the final year of his contract and he will not be brought back next season, obviously. I would also like to try to open up one more rotation spot, one more pitching staff spot at our major league level for the rest of the season and get some guys some looks, get some of the younger guys up in the big leagues, so I would like to get rid of Samardzija to allow that to happen. And Evan Longoria, I have him on the trade block, but it's like 99.9% chance he is not going to be traded at the deadline. He will probably be traded in the offseason if I do trade him. And the plan for him is to trade him, his bad contract, for a different player with a bad contract, but is more useful to the state of our team. Evan Longoria, not quite really that useful for us, so I'm hoping there's somebody out there who has a equally as bad contract or maybe a little bit less as bad contract, and we'll give them like a minor league player just to like sweeten the deal, and we'll be able to have a player who's overpaid but at least be useful for us. So with that being said, that is going to wrap things up here for this edition of the San Francisco Giants franchise, the All-Star Break Update Edition. I've been your host, Jersey Born, and I am saying, bulldoze Tropicana Field.